Boo, them cotton picking jiggers who have to shuck and jive for all their food, what it do? To them Uncle Toms and Aunt Jemimas who just try to make it through. All them coons in them suits who try to hide their abundance because they know that ignorance is tailor-made for our culture is true. I live in the proof. It's supposed to be the land of the free, and they don't want that boy in here. What, he think he a free man? Thought I could stop fighting so hard when Barack said yes we can, but I'm still in those barracks, coldly preparing for war. And we bury our bodies with hashtags and salute while they killing a couple more, and they don't understand my anger. Like, what are you fighting for? Are you right? Us black folks dumb, cause we was taught by y'all saints to pray that they come. A white robe could be an angel, or I could get hung. Y'all must think this fun, the adrenaline of stepping outside. It's all do or die. We messed up letting y'all say nigga in car rides. To you it's just rap, but that's my life, and it leaves me conflicted. Let me tell you why, because everybody wants to be a jigger, but nobody wants to be a jigger when it's time to be a jigger. Boo, and I would be saying nigga, but y'all say that like y'all was in the fields with us too. But don't know what it's like to see a cop and catch your pride with a noose. We know there ain't no love for us here, y'all just love what we do. As long as that boy is rapping good, running fast, and making points when to shoot, when them crackers smile shit, I get mad at that too. So I guess y'all can say nigga, you shouldn't, but it's cool. Say jigger and them black and blue lives really don't matter when you getting fed through a tube in an emergency room with your eyes swole shut. I do way more than bruise. Call me a coon and your mama crying over her son too. And we at his funeral mob deep with a boombox too. I did this with no Vaseline, feels like I'm Ice Cube. At this point, I'm swinging at your whole bloodline. That's you, your dad, and your granddad too. Don't mind me, I'm just jigging. What you expect from a jigaboo?
Thank you. It was a long time coming, but it was good, right? Let's give him another hand, please. What I find really interesting about that, right, is the incorporation of derogatory terms. And so we know that with migrations, whether it's Italian American or Jewish American, whatever demographic we're talking about, there are, of course, potential derogatory terms that go along with the identification of those individuals. So thank you, Trey, for highlighting that, because it is significant for us to reclaim those words so that we can use them for a more purposeful use. So I think we're going to move forward with our panel discussion now. I don't know if we have any other individuals who are in the crowd who said that they were going to be a part of our panel discussion, but we have to my right Ms. Fabiana Malone. Let's give her a hand. To my left, we have Dr. Salusian Joseph, and to the left of him, we have Dr. Shelby Alexander. And, all right, and so we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Fabiana. So we'll see.
Like the little one.
All right. And so, yeah, she's going to just share some information about her migration story, and then we'll go through all of ours.
Good afternoon. My name is Fabiana Malone. Actually, my original name from Brazil is Fabiana Maciel Ramos Malone. My family, my great-grandparents came from Portugal. That's how much I know, because my culture set me to do not ask them much about, probably from all the trauma, the issues they probably went through, or I was so little to listen, and so I don't know much. My father's side, they're all from Italy with a little mix, so say like 25% from Brazil. And so, making short, at the age of 20 years old, I decided to I came here with my father to the United States because he lost his job in Brazil, and another company asked him to come here for work for 9 months under contract, which was awesome. I left college by then. Everything was beautiful in my life, but then once you leave your country to another experiment, and when you try to go back, it's a shock. It's different. I noticed the transition. As I said, my daddy was here for only 9 months under contract. He could not violate that. He had an opportunity to legalize, become a citizen, but he denied because for him it was important to go back home and continue his life. But for me, I was young, I had different dreams. I saw the world different than him because he was married with kids and I wasn't. So I went back to Brazil with tears and broken heart. And I tried to live there for 5 years. It was tough. The system, the government, the education there's ways that the government, I feel like they hold the population. It's manipulative, I felt. So I was there 5 years fighting, and I got tired, so I decided to come again. And back in 2006, I made myself back to the United States. It was hard. I came with $300 and a little backpack. I couldn't bring much because I knew they will know if you bring too much, they will send you back home. So yeah, I made that chance my everything, and so I tried to follow the rules, and I did follow the rules. I became citizen with 3 years being here. I was lucky because 2 months after that they changed for 5 years, and then now I guess it's 10 years. They're making harder because it became a business. And I gave to my parents the green card in addition of that because I wanted them with me because I know how hard the system is there. So I gave to them, but they had to give it back because there's rules over here that you have to follow. You cannot be here with a green card for the first 3 years and live in Brazil 10 months out of the year. You have to be 6 months here, 6 months there. You have to by the time pay Obamacare. Do you remember the Obamacare? So yes, it was rough for them to keep up with that. So now they're living back in Brazil, and I am here, broken heart. I read that book, American, and for me, I identify myself a lot with that book because it's sad, and when he tells the story to Zora about his past, the culture, the tears, it made me go back, and I feel lonely here. I got nobody. It's just me, and I try to convince them to come here, but they don't want to come because
Now you have us.
And I now, yes, this is the good part. I have a family. I came here with the dream of having better life and accomplish my dreams of going to college. It's something that it was impossible to achieve, as I say, because of the way it is. And another interesting influence of the African migration to Brazil is that I'm not Catholic. I am part of a religion that in Brazil it's discriminated. I am Umbanda, which is straight from Africa, and then the people who developed and taught the religion in Brazil was the slaves. I am not a descendant of it, but I am one, and I carry the piece of the energy of the African people with me. And it's part of me, it's part of my culture. It helped me to go through my problems, and it does in the world. There's a piece of Africa everywhere, and I'm in love.
Thank you very much. So another, our opening, right? A discussion here on migration story, absolutely amazing. So some of the topics that I took away from that, right, are that the economic issues. So we know even in the 21st century, migration for economic issues is still a major concern or problem. And then unstable or transitioning governments is another issue. Education, a lot of people come or transition or migrate to other places for educational opportunities. And lastly, this one, and this is what we're dealing with in the Far East, and I think maybe Shelby or Dr. Shelby will talk more about that, is the religious oppression or migrations because of religious issues. So without further ado, I think we'll have one of these gentlemen fight over the next spot because they could keep us here all day. So we'll have one of them decide.
I'll just talk about my thing, and then actually I'm gonna talk about migration, the history of migration. And then we'll go into that. And I'm sorry I was late. My class ended at 12:15, Port St. Lucie West, so I figured I can get here in 15 minutes. And then something happened. Some guy's changing his tire, at Midway where they're fixing everything. So with that little congestion area. But what am I going to talk about? I'm just going to talk about the migration of the African Americans, the history of that, and then I'll go further into some of the religious stuff that's going on later on. My family's from the Middle East, so my parents are actually two different parents. One's from Iran and the other one is from the Palestinian territory, and so they met. And one's Christian, the other's Muslim. So my parents did migrate here from somewhere else, and you talk about the stereotypes that comes with different peoples. I was called throughout school and by others sand in the N-word, right? So there is a stereotype that sticks to certain people. You're right. Let me just really quickly talk about the history of the Great Migration and what we call the Great Migration in the 1920s. As a historian, I'm a historian, by the way, of Middle Eastern history, but I do American history, so I do teach that here. And one of my favorite periods is the 1920s because so much was going on in the 1920s. And if you look at this chronological timeline that I have, some of the stuff that's going on, of course, Prohibition with the passing of the 19th Amendment, 18th Amendment, sorry, 19th Amendment, the one that gives women the right to vote, that's 1920. But right before that one, in 1919, we get Prohibition. So, first immigration laws are also going to, anti-immigration laws are going to go into effect as well. The Ku Klux Klan's influence begins to rise due to a movie being made called Birth of a Nation, the first movie to be viewed in the White House by Woodrow Wilson. It is about the rebirth of the South, and so because of that, the Ku Klux Klan's numbers are going to rise as a result of that. Of course, the 1920s is known as the Jazz Age, and the reason that happened is because of the Harlem Renaissance, and that's what I want to talk about. When we talk about the migration, we think of migration, it all happened at once in history, but actually there was a migration, there's a continuation of a migration that begins all the way back after the Civil War during Reconstruction. So a lot of African Americans were leaving the South during Reconstruction, and some of them were migrating elsewhere, but it's not going to be on a massive scale that we see in the 1920s. So that is the first migration during the Reconstruction era because of some of the laws that go in place and the reversal of Reconstruction. The new administration that comes in, President Johnson, his administration is a pro-Southern administration, and so we start to see some of the stuff that goes on. And you can see again, the South was broken up into districts to try to fix this, try to basically reintegrate the South into the United States. And it was broken up into military districts led by General Sherman, right? This is the right-hand man of General Grant, Ulysses S. Grant. What happens after this is you get what are called Jim Crow laws, right? This is the sort of backlash against Reconstruction, and that's what's going to prevail in the land up until 1950s, the mid-50s, and of course 1965 when we get the Civil Rights Act. So things get better, but not that much after 65. But it's almost 100 years after the Civil War that, some rights are starting to give away. The big picture of the 1920s is this, right? The influx of the Ku Klux Klan and not the influx, but the growth of the Ku Klux Klan to the extent where you're having marches in Washington, D.C., imagine that, and lynching. This was actually this picture right here with those two individuals who've been lynched. That was a postcard. And they would take relics from the people that have been lynched. Ears, we talk about the extremities of ISIS or Al-Qaeda. they would take relics and tie them around their necks. So we got to have the ears of like 5 or 6 victims tied